The text came while I was helping customers at my boutique. I'm leaving you and moving to New York with my 21-year-old girlfriend. I've already emptied our joint account. My hand stayed steady as I read it. My voice didn't shake as I helped Mrs. Timothy pick out a scarf. The only sign that my husband of 13 years had just ended our marriage by text was a small tightening around my eyes. I waited until Mrs. Timothy left, her purchase wrapped in our usual silver paper, before I typed my response. Good luck. My name is Kelly. I'm 39, and today, I got the coldest goodbye message ever. But while Adam was probably feeling proud of his dramatic exit, thinking I'd be crying over his betrayal, I was calmly closing my boutique for the day. The signs had been there for months. The late nights at work that didn't match his pay, the sudden password changes on his phone, the way he started going to the gym all the time, buying new clothes, trying to feel young again. 4 months ago, I found a receipt for dinner for 2 at a fancy restaurant. On a night, he had said he was working late. That same night, I opened a separate bank account at another bank. A week later, when he suggested combining our money to make things easier, I smiled and agreed. Meanwhile, I quietly moved my personal savings to my new account. The joint account he just emptied? It had just enough money to keep him from getting suspicious, about 3 months' worth of regular deposits. The rest was safely in my account, along with detailed records of every shady transaction he'd made over the past year. My phone buzzed again. Don't bother begging. Lauren and I leave tomorrow. I'll send for my things later. Lauren, the new receptionist at his office. I had met her at the company Christmas party. I saw how she laughed too hard at Adam's jokes, how she touched his arm when she thought no one was looking. She was young enough to be his daughter, naive enough to think she was special. I didn't reply to his text. Instead, I called my lawyer, the one I had spoken to 2 months ago when I saw hotel charges on our credit card. It's time, I said. He just made his move. The papers are ready, she replied. I'll file them first thing tomorrow. Do you want him served in New York? No rush. Let him think he's won first. Another text from Adam. I know this must be hard for you. You're not getting any younger, after all. At least you have your little shop to keep you busy. My little shop. The successful boutique I had built from nothing. The one that made more money than his middle management job. The one whose profits I had wisely kept separate from our shared finances. I smiled, thinking about the legal papers waiting for him in New York. Let him enjoy his little victory while he could. That evening, I stayed in our house. No, my house. The one I inherited from my grandmother. The one I had never put Adam's name on, despite his many hints over the years. Another smart decision. While gathering the paperwork for my lawyer, I found our wedding album. Adam looked so different back then, before his midlife crisis turned him into a joke. Now, he wore shirts that were too tight for his softening belly. He tried too hard to fit in with a younger crowd at work, using slang that sounded ridiculous coming from a 46-year-old man. My phone kept buzzing. More texts, each one more arrogant than the last. I've been planning this for months. Lauren understands me in ways you never could. You'll be fine. Maybe you'll find someone more your age. I already told my family. They agree we grew apart. It's nobody's fault, really. I took screenshots of every message and saved them in my evidence folder. Let him keep talking. My lawyer would love the proof, his confession that he had planned this, his bragging about draining our account. Then the last message caught my eye. By the way, I used the joint card to book our flights and hotel. Consider it my parting gift. Oh, perfect. I called the credit card company. Mrs. Walters speaking. I need to report fraud and cancel a card immediately. Of course, ma'am. Can you tell me which charges? 3 first-class tickets to New York, booked today. A hotel stays at the Royal Palm. And I need to remove my husband as an authorized user. Do you have proof of the fraud? Text messages from my husband admitting he used our joint card to book a trip with his girlfriend after emptying our bank account. I can send them to you. The woman on the phone kept her voice professional, but I could hear the slight satisfaction as she canceled the charges. By tomorrow, Adam and Lauren would show up at the airport only to find their tickets useless. Their hotel reservation? Gone. My phone buzzed again. Don't worry about the house. I'll let you stay there until you find something smaller. I actually laughed out loud. Did he really think he had any right to my grandmother's house? Had his ego gotten so big that he forgot whose name was on the deed? Another text. I know the shop means a lot to you. We can figure out a fair price for your half, my half, of my business. The one I built. The one I funded while he complained about my long hours and called it a hobby. I poured myself a glass of wine. The good kind. The kind I had been saving for special occasion. This counted. Tomorrow, Adam would get a lesson in property law and separate assets. But tonight, I would enjoy the quiet and start planning my next chapter. The next morning, my phone lit up with angry messages. What the hell did you do to our credit card? The airline won't let us board. The hotel canceled our reservation. Answer me. I put my phone on silent and headed to my boutique. Wednesdays were always busy, and I had a new shipment of designer handbags to unpack. Life goes on, even when your husband runs off with a receptionist young enough to be his daughter. Around noon, my phone rang. Adam's mother. Kelly dear. Adam told us everything. How controlling you've been. How you pushed him away. And now, he says you're being spiteful and messing up his travel plans. I put her on speaker. As I arranged the window display, I asked, did he mention emptying our joint account and using our credit card to buy tickets for him and his girlfriend? Silence. Then, well, he said you left him no choice. That you've been cold and distant. Kimberly, I have his texts. Want me to read them to you? The one where he bragged about stealing our money? Or the one where he made fun of my age? Another pause. He did sound a bit harsh. I told him that text was inappropriate. I appreciate the call, Kimberly. I've always liked you. But I think it's best if we end this conversation now. My lawyer advised minimal contact with Adam and his family during the divorce. Divorce already? Goodbye, Kimberly. By late afternoon, Adam's sister, Emily, was spreading the latest family gossip. Apparently, Adam and Lauren were stuck in a budget motel near the airport, their New York dreams put on hold. He had tried using his personal credit cards, but they had been maxed out for months. Another red flag I had noticed long ago. Then my lawyer called. The emergency hearing is set for Saturday. Given his confession about draining the account and the credit card fraud, we're in a strong position to freeze his remaining assets. Has he been served yet? Not yet. But we'll send the papers to his new motel address. Speaking of which, she added, his girlfriend's social media is giving us great evidence. She's been posting all day about their adventure, including some not-so-nice comments about you. I smiled, thinking about my own collection of evidence, a year's worth of suspicious charges, hotel receipts, and texts that proved this was all planned. Adam had been so focused on his big escape that he never considered I might be watching, waiting, preparing. Then another text came in. You think you're so smart, but I made copies of all the boutique's financial records. Half that business is mine. I forwarded the message to my lawyer, adding it to the growing file of Adam's mistakes. Let him learn the hard way about separate assets and business ownership. Sometimes, the best revenge is simply being prepared. Saturday's emergency hearing would be everything. Adam walked into the courtroom looking exactly as I had hoped, dressed like a man desperately clinging to his youth. His designer jeans were too tight, and his blazer screamed midlife crisis. Lauren waited outside, her young face looking even younger under the harsh courthouse lights. Inside, my lawyer calmly laid out our evidence, piece by piece. Adam's own text messages bragging about emptying our joint account. Proof of his credit card fraud. Months of hidden expenses, all carefully documented. Your Honor, Adam's lawyer started, my client admits to making some bad choices, but Mrs. Walter has been vindictive and calculating. My lawyer didn't even blink. Calculating? You mean smart? My client protected her separate assets and kept records of her husband's suspicious behavior. That's not vindictive. It's just good business. The judge reviewed the paperwork. The deed to my house, proving it was separate property. The boutique's incorporation papers, in my name only. The clear separation of business and personal finances that Adam had always called unnecessary. Then the judge looked directly at Adam. Mr. Walter, You admitted, via text message, that you emptied a joint account and used shared credit cards to take a trip with your girlfriend. Do you deny this? Adam shifted uncomfortably. I was just trying to make a clean break. By committing financial fraud? The judge raised an eyebrow. And now you're claiming ownership of assets that are clearly separate from the marriage? Adam's lawyer tried again. The business grew during their marriage, Your Honor. My client is entitled to a share. The business was started before the marriage. My lawyer cut in, and Mrs. Walter kept it separate the entire time. We have records of every dollar earned and invested. I watched as reality finally sink in for Adam. He thought this would be easy. Drain the accounts, run off with his girlfriend, claim half of my business. He never understood why I insisted on keeping things separate. He mocked me for being careful. Now it was saving me. The court finds sufficient evidence of financial misconduct, the judge ruled. All shared assets are now frozen until the divorce is finalized. Mr. Walter, you are ordered to return any money taken from joint accounts within 20 hours. Adam panicked. That money's gone. We spent it on. The judge cut him off. Then I suggest you find a way to replace it. A pause. And Mr. Walter, the court does not take kindly to using shared credit cards for vacations with a mistress. Outside the courthouse, I took a deep breath. This was only the beginning. I heard Lauren asking Adam about their New York plans, but his answer faded under the confident click of my heels on the marble floor. I was already walking away, back to the business he had never understood or respected. Over the next few weeks, Adam became more desperate. He claimed the boutique had been his idea. He suddenly remembered investing money in the beginning. He even insisted he had been my business partner all along. Each lie was quickly disproven by my detailed records. He's running out of options, my lawyer noted one day. Lauren's social media says they're staying in her tiny apartment now. Turns out, living off a receptionist's salary isn't as glamorous as he expected. Then his family started reaching out. At first, they blamed me for everything. But now, their tone had changed. We had no idea, his sister Emily admitted. He told us you were cold and controlling, that he needed to escape. But then we saw his texts. The way he bragged about taking your money. That's not the brother I thought I knew. Even his mother called again, this time in tears. The things he said about your age, about replacing you. I raised him better than that. At least I thought I did. I let their calls go to voicemail. A few weeks ago, their support might have mattered. Now, it just felt like rats leaving a sinking ship. Meanwhile, the boutique was thriving. Ironically, the gossip about my situation had brought in more customers. Women came in just to show their support, and often left with more than they planned to buy. My ex tried the same thing. One woman confided while purchasing a designer handbag. Thought he could take everything in the divorce. Men like that never expect us to be smarter than them. Adam was still texting me. His messages swung between anger and manipulation. You've ruined everything. I never meant to hurt you. You'll regret being so vindictive. Can't we work something out? That business would be nothing without my support. I didn't respond. I just forwarded each message to my lawyer. Let him dig his hole deeper. I heard Lauren was having second thoughts. Living in a tiny studio apartment with a middle-aged man who couldn't even afford his own place wasn't the romantic adventure she had imagined. The age gap that once felt exciting during secret hotel meetings now seemed different in the harsh light of reality. She's been posting about toxic relationships and learning from mistakes, my lawyer mentioned during an update call. And she removed her relationship status this morning. I almost felt sorry for Adam. Almost. But then I remembered. The haha in his text after draining our account. The casual cruelty of his comments about my age. The way he assumed I'd be helpless without him. Instead of pity, I felt pride. Pride in my foresight. Pride in my quiet strength. Pride in how I had protected myself while he underestimated me. The final divorce hearing. This was not the moment of victory Adam had imagined. The cocky attitude was gone, replaced by panic. Lauren was nowhere to be seen. She had already moved on to a coworker her own age, according to office gossip. Adam showed up in his old clothes, His designer wardrobe had apparently been returned to help repay what he had stolen. His lawyer looked exhausted, likely from trying and failing to find a loophole in my careful separation of assets. Your Honor, his lawyer tried one last time. Despite the separate property paperwork, my client contributed to the success of his wife's business through moral support. My lawyer didn't miss a beat. Moral support? She repeated. Like these text messages where he called her boutique a little shop? Or these social media posts where he mocked it as just a hobby? The judge had heard enough. The final settlement. I kept my house. I kept my business. I kept all my separate assets. Adam got his personal belongings and his car, which was worth less than what he still owed on it. As we left the courthouse, he leaned toward me and hissed, "You've destroyed me. I have to move back in with my parents." I met his eyes and said, "No, Adam. You destroyed yourself. I just made sure you couldn't destroy me too." His mother was waiting outside to drive him to his new home, his childhood bedroom. The man who had mocked my age was now 46 years old and moving back in with his parents while I continued running my successful business. Adam glared at me. "You planned this all along. You knew this would happen." I shrugged. "No. I just paid attention. And unlike you, I understood the value of keeping good records." His mother stepped between us. "That's enough, Adam. You've embarrassed yourself enough already." Then she turned and walked away, her son trailing behind. I heard his mother start in on him. "Honestly, what were you thinking? A 21-year-old? Emptying bank accounts? Sending those horrible texts?" I watched them disappear into the parking lot, feeling nothing but relief. Adam thought he was writing the ending to my story with that cruel text. Instead, he had only set my carefully made plans into motion. My phone buzzed, not with messages from Adam, but with notifications of new orders from my boutique's website. Life was moving forward, just not in the direction he had imagined. 7 months later, by the time the divorce was finalized, my boutique had expanded to a second location. The irony wasn't lost on me. While Adam struggled to rebuild his life, the little shop he had dismissed was thriving. I had hired 3 new employees and launched an online store that was quickly growing across the country. News about Adam's situation trickled in through mutual acquaintances. He had tried dating apps, but women his age weren't interested in a middle-aged man living with his parents. Younger women, having heard about his past through office gossip, avoided him completely. Lauren had warned her friends about him, even sharing screenshots of his desperate messages trying to win her back after she left. His career wasn't doing any better. The company's HR department investigated his relationship with a subordinate and issued him a formal warning. The promotion he had been expecting went to someone else, someone without a history of inappropriate office relationships. He tried to claim age discrimination, but HR just added that complaint to his file. One afternoon, Adam's sister, Emily, walked into my boutique. I was surprised to see her, but the fact that she was here at all said a lot about how thoroughly Adam had alienated his own family. She picked up a silk scarf, running her fingers over the fabric before finally saying, "I know we didn't support you at first." He played the victim so well. But after watching how he acted, I'm ashamed we ever believed him. I nodded but said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Meanwhile, my lawyer kept me updated on Adam's failed attempts to challenge the divorce settlement. Every petition was denied. His claim of unfair distribution was dismissed thanks to the evidence of his own actions. He actually tried to argue that his text about emptying the account was just a joke, my lawyer told me, laughing. The judge asked if haha made theft less illegal. The boutique's success brought me unexpected validation. Local business magazines wanted to feature my story, not as a scorned ex-wife, but as a smart entrepreneur who had protected her interests. Young business owners reached out for advice on keeping personal and business finances separate. In the end, the best protection wasn't revenge. It was preparation. I once told a young woman, who reminded me of Lauren, always trust your instincts. Adam's mother still called me sometimes, usually after he had done something self-destructive. He had tried online gambling, hoping for a quick fix to his money problems. He got involved in a pyramid scheme that promised fast returns. Each attempt to fix his life just made things worse. I don't know where we went wrong with him, she sighed on one call. His father and I offered to help him get back on his feet if he just took responsibility. But he still blames everyone else, you, Lauren, his company, even the judge. I listened politely, but kept my distance. Their family drama wasn't my problem anymore. My life had moved forward, plans for a third boutique location and even a possible expansion into luxury accessories. The only reminder of Adam in my life was a framed screenshot hanging in my office. His final text before I blocked him. Have fun with your little shop. At least it'll keep you busy in your old age. Right below it sat my latest business award. Proof that sometimes the best revenge is simply success. 2 years later, I hosted a grand opening for my third boutique. The event drew local media, but the story wasn't about my failed marriage. It was about a successful businesswoman expanding her brand. Adam's betrayal? Just a small detail in my success story. Then Lauren walked in. She looked younger than ever, or maybe I just felt that much stronger. She stood there, clutching her purse like a shield. I owe you an apology, she said quietly. I believed everything he told me, that you were cold, controlling, that you didn't support his dreams. Then I watched him try the same tricks on me when things got tough. I continued arranging a display of designer sunglasses. Those weren't dreams, Lauren. They were escapes. There's a difference. I know that now. She hesitated, then added, he tried to move in after you froze the accounts. Thought my studio apartment would be temporary. After 3 weeks of him complaining about the size of my closet and suggesting I take out a loan for a bigger place, I understood what you meant about the difference between dreams and escapes. I actually laughed. Let me guess. He had big plans but no way to pay for them? Lauren sighed. Exactly. Everything was going to work out once his investments paid off. Once he got that promotion. Once his cryptocurrency definitely increased in value. She shook her head. I'm dating someone my own age now, Lauren said with a small smile. We have student loans and a tiny apartment, but at least we're building something real. After she left, my assistant manager leaned over and whispered, was that the girlfriend?
No, I said.
That was just another woman who learned the same lesson I did. Then, spotting a young couple admiring our designer handbags, I gestured to my assistant. Speaking of lessons, let's talk about your idea for expanding our accessories line. More than just a business. The boutique had become more than just a store. It was a symbol of independence, resilience, and the power of preparation. Young entrepreneurs often came to me for advice, and I always told them the same thing. Protect your assets. Plan ahead. Be smart. One day, Adam's mother called for the last time.
Not to talk about Adam,
but to thank me. You taught our family an important lesson, she said. About enabling bad behavior. About making excuses for cruelty. Adam is still living at home, still blaming everyone else for his problems. But we're not defending him anymore. That's your legacy to our family. You showed us the difference between supporting someone and enabling them. I thought about that as I reviewed plans for a 5th boutique location. Adam had intended to break me. He had tried to replace me with someone younger. He had expected to take half of everything I built. Instead, he had pushed me to become even stronger. My phone buzzed. A message from my lawyer. Adam filed another petition to revisit the settlement. Judge dismissed it immediately and ordered him to pay court costs. Thought you'd enjoy that. I smiled, picturing Adam in his childhood bedroom, still trying to rewrite an ending that had been decided the moment he underestimated me. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting better. 3 years later. 3 years after Adam's cruel text, I received an invitation to speak at a women's business conference. The topic wasn't divorce or betrayal. It was about building and protecting a successful business. My story had evolved from a warning to an inspiration. During the Q&A session, a woman stood up and asked, how important is it to keep business and personal finances separate? My husband says I'm being paranoid. That marriage means sharing everything. I smiled. My ex-husband said the same thing. I told her. Right up until he tried to take half my business in our divorce. Trust your instincts. Protection isn't paranoia. The boutique chain had grown to 5 locations, each more successful than the last. The little shop Adam once mocked now employed 50 people and had been featured in national magazines. Through mutual friends, I had heard that Adam was still stuck in the same place. Meanwhile, I was only moving forward. I heard that Adam had finally moved out of his parents' house into a small apartment above a garage. He had to take a lower-paying job after his old company downsized and eliminated his position. His dating profile still said he was young at heart, though his photo was clearly outdated. Ironically, Lauren had become a regular customer at my original boutique. She had earned her business degree and started her own social media consulting company. One day, she told me, "You inspired me, showing how a woman can build something lasting instead of falling for empty promises." I smiled. I still kept Adam's cruel text message framed in my office, not as a reminder of pain, but as proof of how far I'd come. Below it hung a sign that read, "Success is the best revenge." 6 years later, at the 6-year anniversary of my first boutique, I stood in front of my employees and loyal customers. What had started as one small shop had grown into the flagship store of a thriving business empire. Adam's mother was there. I hadn't invited her, but she waited until the crowd thinned before approaching me. "I saw Adam yesterday," she said, smoothing the designer dress she had bought from my store. "He was talking about his glory days, about the life he could have had." She sighed. "He still doesn't understand that he didn't lose everything in the divorce. He threw it away." I thought about his text, the casual cruelty, the assumption that I would fall apart without him, that I would beg, break, and prove him right. Instead, I had built something stronger than ever. Each new boutique location stood as proof of what women could achieve when they stopped dimming their light for insecure men. Just then, the young saleswoman I had recently hired, coincidentally also named Lauren, walked over with a question about the new inventory system. As I explained it, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the store window. And I saw what Adam had failed to see 6 years ago. Not a woman getting older, but a woman getting wiser, stronger, and more successful. His cruel text message was meant to be the end of my story. Instead, it had been the beginning. Not just for me, but for every woman who heard my story and realized she deserved better than someone else's midlife crisis.